It is imperative for all Christians to learn apologetics, especially young women and mothers. Young Christian women are often influenced by their peers to participate in popular practices such as yoga, mindfulness meditation, prayer labyrinths, and other forms of contemplative spirituality in order to reduce stress and draw closer to God. However, these techniques are counterfeits, distracting them from Jesus, who alone gives us confident access to the Father and invites us to cast all of our anxious thoughts onto Him. We're going to dive a little deeper into this here in a few minutes. But before we do so, let me go ahead and drop the intro. This is the Vegapod, inviting you to look at the issues through a biblical lens. Tonight, we're going to be looking at women and apologetics. Does the church need women, or does apologetics need more women? As we look a little deeper into this, we'll see that even though there are plenty of women in apologetics, there's a lot of women apologists that are doing great things, like my friend here, Carm. We need more. It's one of those areas that men are kind of in the majority, and our approach into conversations, between a man and a woman is slightly different. So having more women involved will help Christianity continue to grow and get more people into the kingdom, which is ultimately the goal. So without further ado, let me go ahead and turn it over to Carm, give her a few minutes to introduce herself, tell us a little about her ministry and the things that she's involved in.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Carmen, and I go by Carm online. I don't know. I do a lot of moderating for a lot of YouTube channels, so that's what I go by, Carm M. I am married. I have 4 children, and I have been doing apologetics for the last, I would say, 7 years or so. I think it's important. I think that it strengthens us, and it's motivated me every single day to just get out there and learn and as much as I can so I can teach others. I am a part of Ministry to Muslims. They have a YouTube page. They have a website. And every Sunday we go live and we discuss all kinds of topics. And so I'm doing that right now. I was teaching before the move. I moved from California we're now in Georgia. And so hopefully I'll be getting back into that soon. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. If you're not familiar with the Ministry to Muslims YouTube, I would definitely encourage you to go over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, get notified. I've came across it fairly recently as a result of getting to know Carm a little bit, and they have a lot of great stuff on there. They've interviewed Anthony Rogers. They've had a ton of guests on there. A lot of very helpful content as you try to engage and interact and ultimately lead Muslims to Jesus, right?
Amen, yes.
All right. Tell us a little about your personal channel, Carm.
So I have had this channel for a few years. I am not very good with technology, so I've been delayed on that. Just recently, I just started picking up and started to make videos because mostly I was helping other people with their channels, and believe it or not, I'm shy, so I don't like to be, in the camera. But last year, with Ministry to Muslims, Pastor George kind of threw me out there and had me moderate between Reverend Anthony Rogers and Dr. Shabir Ali, and that if that was crazy to be out there with one of the biggest debates ever, my first time. So, if I could get through that, I can do anything. So that and then being on the channel every Sunday has kind of just gotten me used to it. And really, it's not that big of a deal, but it's all in my head. So right now I'm in a transition of trying to figure out, I need a computer. So once I get that, then I'll be able to start making more videos. A better computer, I should say. I have one, but a better one. So once I get that going, then I'll be making more content.
Honestly, the stuff you have up there is very good. I love your introductory videos to apologetics. You did something talking about the Trinity as well. I think it's very helpful. It's stuff that we need. So go over to Carm's channel, Carm M, right?
Yes.
Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, have her help her continue to, to post those videos and help us kind of continue to grow in our walk with Jesus. Yeah, Shabir Ali and Anthony Rogers, that's tough.
Yeah.
But
they were great. They were great. And
yeah,
it was easy actually, now that I think about it. Hindsight, of course, but leading up to it, I was a nervous wreck.
yeah, I've heard Shabir debate, I think twice before. I heard him debate Nabil Qureshi, who passed away a few years ago, and he seems like a very nice guy. It was a cordial, kind of very friendly conversation. Obviously, there's some disagreements, right? But very friendly, which is good. You don't see that too often in debates. Unfortunately, people tend to get a little heated, and yeah, that's cool. But anyway, you do a great job. You're a great host. I actually found out about your content through the Facebook group that we're both in. But I remember, and even though I don't get to tune in live a lot of the videos from the people in the bodega, I always see kind of your name pop up in the live chat with the little blue wrench. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And what we're going to do first is actually, let me go ahead and hide this logo out the way. I got to make this a little smaller. Sometimes it's kind of just too much there. And let me see if I can make this full screen. Let's see. No, over here. All right. So before we go into this a little more, I want to define what apologetics is. So apologetics may be simply defined as a defense of the Christian faith. Apologetics most commonly discipline concerned with the defense of the faith. Second, it can refer to a general grouping of approaches or systems developed for defending the faith. And so when we talk about evidentialist apologetics or reformed apologetics, I would also add in there presuppositional, classical, a couple different methods. I've also heard people throw around moral apologetics. Personally, I would say I lean more towards evidential apologetics, but I see the usefulness, and I think we should, as believers, use every possible method to try to witness to someone we're trying to share with them the gospel of Jesus. Now, third, it is sometimes used to refer to the practice of defending the faith as the activity of presenting an apology or apologies in defense of the faith. Ultimately, the word was used before the 1700s, it's kind of like a lawyer kind of term. It's kind of used in the courtroom kind of scenes. In 1700s, if I'm not mistaken, that's when it started kind of being used more of in a theological sense. I will include a link in the description of the video to kind of show where I got this from. It is from the Bible.org site, and it's what is apologetics? I think it's the title. So let me go ahead and go into the next one here. So it's also important that we define what an apologist is, because ultimately the thumbnail of the video says, women apologists wanted. We need more women apologists. An apologist is someone who presents an apology or makes a practice of defending the faith. Apologists might and do develop their apologies within various intellectual contexts. That is, they may offer defenses of the Christian faith in relation to scientific, historical, philosophical, ethical, religious, theological, or cultural issues. So a lot of different areas where you can kind of tackle as you offer defenses for the Christian faith. As we go a little more into these slides, we'll see a couple different ideas and ways that can be approached using apologetics. So let me go ahead and flip back here. All right. So let me see here. I guess a good question. Actually, you know what? Now let's do this instead. Let's go ahead. Let's start off with these here, and then we'll kind of jump into some questions. So these are a few verses, kind of where we get this idea of apologetics from. I think it's important that we demonstrate that apologetics is biblical. It's not something that we're out here making up. It's something that you see Jesus do often in the Gospels. Something that you see the apostles do often. It's something that you see the early church do often. It's not something that is new, or it's been around for forever in a sense. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. This is 1 Peter 3:15 ESV. Beloved, although I was very eager to write to you about our common salvation, I found it necessary to write appealing to you to contend for the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. Jude 1, verse 3. The latter do it out of love, knowing that I'm put here for the defense of the gospel. This is Paul here in Philippians 1:16, letting us know that he's been put out here for defending the gospel. And that's kind of like what we're all being put out here for. All right. Let's see. So I sent these to you. These are kind of 6 points. This is coming from the Mama Bear Apologetics website. If you're not familiar with their content, I would definitely encourage you to check their stuff out. I came across their content when they were fairly new, very helpful. I think right now they've got 2 books that they've written. The first one was just kind of Mama Bear Apologetics. The second one is more focused, if I'm not mistaken, on the issue of sexuality. These are 6 points, kind of emphasizing why we need women in the field of apologetics, why we need more women apologists. Men pioneer, but women civilize. Women often have a higher IQ. Women can help make apologetics more practical. Apologetics already has a bad reputation, and a feminine face could help. Women are more relational in their ministry. Positive versions of femininity must be displayed if for no other reason than negative versions of femininity must be refuted. I'm going to leave these up. Just curious, when I send these to you, what were your initial thoughts?
I agree. I agree with all of them, especially women can make apologetics more practical. A lot of
Yeah.
people get really intimidated when they hear that word. They don't know what it is. They think that it's something outside of something that they can't do. I was one of them. So I know exactly what that feeling is when you hear that word. But it's true. We can take that word, women, and bring it down to a more relational feeling, and we all can, understand it from wherever we are. You don't have to be a theologian to be an apologist. You really don't. I mean, you have to know what you're talking about, right? But defending what you believe is something that we are commanded to do, like you just read, and
Right.
it's something that with time you get better at. It's not something you're going to wake up and be a professional. I'm still not. I'll never be. To the day that I die, I'll still be trying to be better than I was yesterday. But that's true. But once you get more familiar with it and understand it, you get more comfortable, and then you're like, oh, it's just a word. It's just a word,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No,
number
it's
5 too. Women
go
are
ahead. I'm sorry.
more relational. That's fine. Women are more relational. We can bring real life to the ministry. Women relate with one another, and when other women see that another woman is doing it, it doesn't seem so out there. It seems more achievable.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love how you mentioned how we're always kind of growing. That's ultimately what the Christian faith, the walk is all about, right? We're always growing. We're not going to be, in a sense, perfected until we get to be in eternity with Jesus. And even that, I think there's always, but we're in a sense perfected because we're with him. We're not going to have full knowledge as soon as we see him. I think it'll be a process of us kind of continuing to learn and know more about him. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So apologetics is something that is biblical. It is something that, as Carm had mentioned, we always growing. I came across apologetics a few years ago. I personally, I don't know if I would consider myself to be an apologist. I think Carm is more of an apologist than I am. I would say I like to, interact and offer responses. So I guess in that sense, maybe, but I'm not as official as Carm is. All right. So let's go ahead and look at some of these points here. Do you want to read these, Carm?
Sure. Men pioneer, but women civilize. Difficult truth must be applied gently, with compassion and with mercy, all qualities for which women are better known. Women often have a higher EQ. A woman's ability to sense distress and diffuse it during an apologetics conversation is a powerful weapon in a world going mad.
Yeah, definitely. What are your some of your thoughts here with these 2 points?
So I, as women, we have a tendency to know how to diffuse a situation. We know how to use our words wisely, especially with you know men or the opposite sex, of when they're angry or when you want to get your point across. And I mean, take for an example, your siblings. You know what will make your siblings mad, and you know what won't. So as a kid, you kind of grow up and learn how to um, to study people and know what their their ticks are, to not make them mad. So you just kind of build that. And then when you grow up and to do stuff like this, you kind of get a feel for how to work a conversation. And, our the goal is to never make anybody upset. We always want to do it. We want to talk to people in love, because our goal is to get them to understand that whatever religion they're in that's wrong, we want our goal is to get them to understand what the Bible says, and that there's only one way to heaven. And if they continue on the road that they're on, they're going to die in their sins, and they're not going to get there. And that is what my driving force, because I'm one of those people that it physically hurts me to think that someone, if they continue to on the road that they are, they're gonna end up, not in eternity with God, and that hurts me. So I pray, and I just try to ask the Lord to give me the words and the right words for this particular person. And it's not always going to be that perfect conversation that first time, and hopefully you'll be able to build a relationship with this person so they can see where your heart is, and then learn to trust that you're coming from a place of good intentions, and that you love them, and hopefully they'll start to listen, and you can have a dialogue back and forth and disagree, but be okay with, okay, till the next time we'll touch on something else, but build that relationship. That's important.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. You hit on there. It's kind of knowing that there's only one way, you know, to the Father, right? Jesus tells us, John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the Father, and the way. No one comes to the Father except through me. And then here on this side, we believe that to be true. So we want to help people get to know Him. Ultimately, the truth isn't just a something, or that it's a person, right? And Jesus is the truth. So we want people to kind of have that, because we want more people to be in heaven.
Yeah,
We want more people to come into the kingdom.
yeah, because we know
I was
what's.
flipping.
Mhm.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, we know what's at stake. We
Yeah.
understand. We understand that there's consequences, and not every road will get you to heaven. It's not a smorgasbord world that where you can believe in this and you can believe in that, and if as long as you're a good person. I mean, it sounds nice, but it's not reality. And so, because we as Christians, we understand that there's only one way. There's this urgency to explain that to people. But I feel like at this day and age, there's so many different beliefs out there, and everybody's just kind of in their own. They're content. They're content with not seeking the truth, and that's what the enemy does. He gives everything to you in such a way where you're good. You're good. As long as I'm minding my own business, I'm not bothering anybody, I'm good. And so he gives you this false sense of security. And so that's when we step in and disrupt everything in their life and make them uncomfortable. But although it's not a good thing at the time, they'll go home and they'll think about it. And you've done your job. I mean, we plant the seeds, other people water, and God already has set out what he wants, so we just got to do our part and leave it up to him.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love how you mentioned how it's not a smorgasbord. I think that's so important. Nowadays, people want to take a little bit of here, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and when you're done, you can call it whatever you want, but it's not Christianity. It's something else. It's
It's
I know
ridiculous.
it's not
That's what
popular.
it is.
It's one of those things where you're entitled to do that, right? You're wrong, but if you that's what you want to do, just don't call it Christianity. Call it something else. Name it after yourself. I don't know.
Right? I'm sure people do.
I was trying to flip through earlier, so I'm sorry if I threw you off. I have like the two tabs, so I wanted to kind of see something here on my end. So I have a couple notes just based on some of the bullet points here. Can you still see me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not talk about the first point. Talks of men pioneer, but women civilized. I know some people hear this, and some people get a little kind of on the defensive side. So I want to make sure that I offer some clarity on what's being said and communicated. And I'll include the link in the description of the video as well. But I want to make sure, since we're talking about it here, that we try to clear up as much as we can. This is not trying to say that men are inferior to women or that men don't matter. Obviously, we know that that's kind of the way like secular culture and society kind of has trended in the last few years. But that's not what we're communicating here. That is not the heart of Mama Bear Apologetics. That is not the heart of Carm, and that's not my heart. I want to make sure that we make that clear out front. It's just highlighting how women are necessary in apologetics, and we need their skill set or particular gifts to help grow the body of Christ. Ultimately, this is all about the kingdom. So I just want to make sure that I throw that out there in case anybody it takes it gets a little offended. I want to make sure I make that clear. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the next slide here. Are you good reading these, Carm?
Yeah.
Let me share my screen. Because if I have it on the screen, it's easier to read, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Women can help make apologetics more practical. When it comes to presenting apologetics in a practical manner and showing how it affects everyday life, I think that women's ability to compartmentalize actually becomes their strength. Apologetics already has a bad reputation, and a feminine face could help. All I know is that if a man and a woman both say something harsh with love, the love is often more readily perceived coming from a woman than it is from a man.
What were some of your thoughts?
We do make it more practical. I've been around this a lot to see the different approaches that men are more. They're great. That's who I learned from, but they're more a matter of fact. It's this way. It's this way. It's that way.
Yeah.
Women have a tendency to understand. Well, not that men don't understand, but women. That's where our hearts are first. We put our hearts first to try to understand where someone's coming from, and then work around that. Once we understand where this person's coming from, and then we build our questions and our approach to them around that. I think that women come off more with more compassion. I know some women that don't. Depends how mad you make them. No, I think that women also come off as more trusting. It's not that we're trying to deceive anybody. It's just how it is. We come where men have this image of maybe being macho, and women, we love everybody, and I think that that's just how we come off. So I think that that these are true.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Honestly, I think you are right to say that men don't understand. I don't think you needed to walk that back. I think you were right. My wife would agree.
Yeah, she's gonna thumbs up that.
Um, you mentioned, and they make the point here as well as how women make apologetics more practical. I guess in your experience, what are some ways that you have found that women kind of make it more practical as they engage in conversations?
I don't know. I can't think of anything offhand. We can make it more practical. Well, I'll give you an example. So I taught a class, and it was a 4-week class. Um, Definitely wasn't enough to get into everything that I was teaching, but it was a basic introduction to apologetics. My church was very the congregation was like, what is this word? It was something new to
Yeah.
almost 90% of them. And so they were hesitant, but because they knew me, um, my classes were filled. That first day, everybody was very overwhelmed. It was, they didn't think that they were going to be able to do it. It was like almost like the hardest math class you can think of. That's how they were looking at it. Like it was a foreign language and how can they do this? But because they knew me, because they knew that, I kept saying, if I can do this, you can do this. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to put it the easiest way. I'm going to show you that this is practical, that we do this every day. Maybe
Yeah.
not in the sense of biblical, but women, we do this every day. We always plead our case. We want something to our husbands, we plead our case.
Good
We know
point.
how to use our words. We know how to defend ourselves, to defend our children. We this is everyday tactics that we use. But
Yeah.
in the biblical sense, of course, it's modified towards the Bible, and of course, we have to know what we're talking about, but we can do it. It's not something that's unachievable. It's not something that you have to, be a theologian. You have to have a ton of school under your belt to be able to do this. So after the 4 weeks of my class, my students did great. I had many more students. My classes were filled, which I'm very blessed about that, because for something into that church that was new, that it was received well. And so they learned a lot. And each of my students learned something, and they took it however God wanted to use them. They used it in that way. And but if you would have asked them at the beginning of the semester, they would have, no, this is way out of my league. But no, it is practical, and it's something that we all can do, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you're right. And I think it's from what you're saying and kind of as I'm kind of prepped and kind of read a few different things, it does seem to come in a sense a little more naturally for women. Just kind of, I guess, like you mentioned, they're kind of accustomed to pleading their case, when it comes to different things, when they're trying to plead their case when they're talking to their husbands, or like you mentioned, setting up for their kids.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I guess I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, that's good. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's a an important point to emphasize and hit on. It's very encouraging to find out that the church you were at previously was so open to apologetics. I think nowadays that's not always the case. And some of the churches that I kind of been involved in or kind of am familiar with in the area don't seem to be as open. And a lot of it just seems to be kind of a misconception of what apologetics is, which is sad. But it also it's a bummer that it prevents them from being open to having a conversation and trying to figure out what it really is sometimes. So,
Yeah.
but that's awesome. That's encouraging.
Mhm.
Um, is there any um, video footage of some of your classes from a few years ago?
Oh, yeah, I have all of that. I just
Really?
Oh, yeah, I have all of it. I
That's
just don't know
awesome.
what to do with it. I don't like I said, I have issues with trying to figure out this online, the editing stuff.
Got you.
I need a team. That's what I need.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it four separate videos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, listen, I would encourage you to kind of try to get this uploaded to your channel. I think that'd be very helpful.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you guys have handouts and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
so you were like all the way in. That's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. My
Yeah.
goal was to get, the church understanding how important this was and how they can utilize it in their everyday life, because you wouldn't, I mean, unless you're told, like when I told my students, this is everyday life for us. When you're at the grocery store, when you're sitting with, at a family event and something gets brought up, it's every day. I find I can use apologetics. I can talk Bible anywhere that I go. There's always an opportunity. And especially now, I found even in here at my daughter's school, they're offering mindfulness, yoga, way to relax. And mind you, I truly believe that they have no idea what they're doing. They have their students' best intentions, to get them to relax. But if they truly knew, and they will know because that's my goal. I'm going in soon. But once they understand what is really behind all of that, there's other ways to have the children to get them to relax, but not in that way. But the enemy is very, very sly. He finds all kinds of ways to get into our lives, our children's lives. Um, and if we're not on our game all the time, it can easily be right in front of us, and we'll fall victim to it. But apologetics, when you're studying and you're learning about things, it's never ending, and it's so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah, it
It
is.
really is. Like, people don't realize, when they hear that I love to study the Bible. You do? I
Yeah.
do, because there's always something new that I'm learning.
Yes.
I love learning. It's especially, on all these, I just spoke at a conference for Vocab Malone in February, and I spoke on the New Age creeping into the church.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was great, because a lot of the people there afterwards, they talked to me about, the things that they see in their church. And, it really encouraged them to get motivated to talk, to bring things up to their pastor. Because you're right, a lot of pastors don't, they're intimidated by that word, apologetics.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough, my pastor, although he didn't know a lot about it, but he knew me, he believed in me, he understood my heart, he understood where I was coming from, and he said, you go, girl."
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, and so, it helps us to become more strong in our faith and understand. And also, the one thing that I always told my students, and for everybody, is that the more you know, the less intimidated you'll be to talk to people. Because
Right.
in the beginning, when you talking to people, you just kind of sat there because you didn't know what to say. Maybe you knew that they were wrong, but you didn't know how to engage, and how to you just didn't know how. But apologetics, it strengthens you, it encourages you. And
Yes.
just like with anything in life, like my example to my husband all the time is he loves baseball. He knows everything about baseball. So, and if anybody comes up to him and talks to him about baseball, he will drop whatever he's doing, and he is just like the baseball,
Yeah.
major league in that moment. But that's how it is when you're confident about something. You're going to speak with confidence because you know what you're talking about. And the only reason why we don't speak up is because we're not sure if we know what we're talking about. And it's not that hard to get to that place where you know what you're talking about. So that it's
Yes.
very, I hope that this encourages women to to just get in their word, and to understand at least the basics of Christianity. Because if you know the basics of Christianity, then you're able to at least, when these cults, these people with, the Jehovah's Witness or the Oneness Pentecostal, or the Mormons, that you can at least have a foundation and start there. And like I said prior, you build a relationship, and you can, go back and read more and study more, because it will motivate you to seek the answers, so then you have an answer for them when you talk to them again.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, I guess kind of staying in that same train of thought, what are some, I guess, core or basics of Christianity that you would recommend for women to kind of dig into a little more?
Um, I would definitely encourage them to understand the Trinity. I think that the Trinity is the most misunderstood. I think a lot of Christians, what I found is a lot of Christians can't even accurately explain the Trinity.
Yeah.
And it's not to put them down, right? Because a lot of people feel like they believe it, and that's all they need to say. But when someone asks you, explain it, and you can't, it kind of, I know it made me feel bad. Like, how can I say that I'm a Christian and I can't even explain that? I remember thinking, I know in my heart I do, but really that's not good enough. You have to know why. You have to know why you believe what you believe. So the more
For
I
sure.
started to understand what the Trinity how to explain it, what it meant in Christianity, because there's also, what I found is that on my journey to where I am today, I was actually for a little while being taught by a oneness pastor. I didn't know there was a difference. I was enjoying my weekly Bible studies at my brother's house. I loved it. I thought I was learning, and come to find out, he was a oneness pastor. So he called himself a Christian. He used the same Bible we use. He ended
Yep.
his prayers in Jesus' name. And so when I realized that there are people who call themselves Christians, that are not, like, it really, really humbled me and made me only, once I got over that, because it was a really big shock to me, that I realized, all right, I need to learn everything I can about the differences so I will never be fooled again. And then once I learn about all of that, I need to tell my friends, because since then, there's been a lot of my friends who get fooled, and not intentionally. TD Jakes, perfect example,
Yep.
is a wolf. And
Yeah, let's say that again.
yes, he
TD
is.
Jakes,
Yes,
not a good teacher.
not, no. And he is deceiving everybody in plain sight. And this is a pushback that I've gotten from a lot of my Christian friends, because they don't want to believe it.
Yep.
If you
It's
did your
unfortunate.
homework, if you did your homework
Yeah.
properly, I know it's hard to want to believe that someone that you like, and granted, he has some good sermons. Maybe he's a good speaker, but that he's misleading everybody. So once I
Yes.
learned that, and I learned that, I need to be on my I need to understand I need to understand what the Bible says, so I cannot be fooled again. So that led me to learn about the Trinity, to learn about the deity of Christ, to learn about the resurrection.
Yeah.
um, when I was teaching, that was one of the classes I taught, is the resurrection of Jesus. That I learned so much. And not only did I learn so much, it strengthened my faith.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that people in everyday conversation don't bring up about the
Yep.
resurrection, and all the little details surrounding the resurrection. It'll blow your mind.
Yes.
There's nothing that anybody can tell me. It just strengthened my faith. So, and it did that so for my students too. So,
So good.
you learn about this stuff, and you, not surface level, like when you really do study, it strengthens your faith. And so then you're not easily fooled by people when they come up to you and say, no, Jesus didn't die on the cross. He didn't die. Yes, he did. Yes,
Right.
he did. So
That's awesome. Um, I just want to sum up, in case you missed it, the Trinity is an essential to salvation. If you don't believe in the Trinity, if you reject the Trinity, you have the wrong Jesus. Sorry, that's just kind of where we're at. Ultimately, this is about helping people, you know, be an attorney with God, with Jesus, right? Getting
right.
more people into the kingdom. So we have to be honest. We share the truth. We'll do so in love, where we're going to share the truth nonetheless.
Yeah. And it's a hard conversation to have, because no one wants to be wrong. No one.
Right.
And I have been there when I have told this to someone, and I could see the pain, because it is literally a very hard thing to accept, to know that you've been lied to, your whole life, that you've been following a religion and it's been wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes years to overcome that, and it's hurtful, it's heartbreaking, but you know that in your heart you've done the right thing. You've done it. And God has led you to this person intentionally, and so you can, like you said, you do it in love, because we do love these people. We want them to be saved. We want them to know the
Yes.
truth. You can't, and it's not to say that these people in the oneness churches, that all of them understand, what they're hearing the word, well, the Bible, they think they're in church hearing the word, but they're not necessarily rejecting the Trinity. There's a lot of oneness churches that there's people in there who may be saved. That
Right.
doesn't, it's the people who flat out reject the Trinity.
Yes.
That's who I'm referring to.
Yeah, there's a difference in not being aware and then being aware and rejecting it.
Yeah.
So when we're talking, we're focusing on those that are aware and rejecting it. If you're unaware, that's different. We
Right.
hope that as you dig into the scriptures, as you do a little more research on your own, you'll come to find the truth
Yes.
and have it be confirmed, through the Holy Spirit in prayer, right? Um, so ultimately, yeah, that's the goal. Let me go ahead and share my screen again here, and let's jump into the next couple of slides here. Um, let's see. All right. I can read these, Carm,
Okay.
since I know you read a lot a little earlier. Um, so women are more relational in their ministry. While men are usually trying to answer their own questions, women are often trying to answer the questions of someone they love, a child, a spouse, or a friend. Positive versions of femininity must be displayed if for no other reason, the negative reasons of femininity must be refuted. As women step into apologetics, we have the opportunity to model what truth wrapped in love looks like to a world that has forgotten what biblical femininity should look like. Femininity, that's one of those words that's, no matter how often you say it, it's just hard to say. um,
Don't ask me to say it.
yeah, it's funny because I tried to kind of like practice a little bit beforehand. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess it helped a little bit. What were some of your initial thoughts as you kind of saw these here? And we mentioned this earlier. We did kind of talked about how women are more relational in their ministry. Um, and with that first bullet point, I think it's I think it's the way things are set up in our society nowadays. I guess it's a little more different now, but for a little while there, women tended to be more at home with kids. So it makes sense that they were trying to answer the questions of their kids, maybe perhaps their spouse because their spouse is at work, or friends, people that they kind of have the opportunity to interact with more on on a daily basis. Men aren't, for the most part, very good at building friendships. Speak for myself, that's something that I struggle with to a degree. Just kind of putting myself out there. It's something that I'm working on, and I'm thankful for my church. They've helped me a lot in that area. Just they have the way they set up their small groups. It's helpful, right? It kind of, to a degree, kind of forces you to kind of step into that, and it is biblical to build those friendships. I do have a little pushback on that first bullet point. Um, just and this is more of a general thing. This isn't me saying, hey, they got this wrong. If you look at the article, these are, and she makes it very clear, these are true in a general sense. She recognizes that may not be true for all men or all women. Some men are more macho than others, um, and so maybe their approach to apologetics will be more relational in that sense. Um, so, but for me, this wasn't the case, right? When I got into apologetics, I wasn't so much trying to answer my own questions. Well, early on in my faith, I was aware of apologetics. I wasn't really digging deeper into it. It wasn't until I encountered some objections from one of my former coworkers. He was showing me some things on YouTube. A lot of it, looking back, was kind of like a lot of the side guy stuff, which has been debunked over and over and over again. But not being aware, it was something that kind of like, oh wow, like I didn't know these things. Um, for me, I appreciate ministries like Mama Bear Apologetics and Natasha Crane, which was one of the first women apologists that I came across. Um, she does a lot with just helping parents. So actually, let me actually so let me tell you a little bit more, I guess, about Natasha Crane. Her ministry is geared towards helping parents answer questions that kids may have. So let me flip back here and let me see something here. See if I can show this book here. So one of her books is Keeping Your Kids on God's Side. This is, I think, is her first book, and this is 40 conversations to help them build a lasting faith. She's also written two other books. I have not gotten the last one. She did one is talking with. with your kids about God, and then there's one talking with your kids about Jesus. Um, Very helpful for parents. Obviously, she's a mom, so a lot of it is geared towards moms in that sense. But for us dads, if you have kids, you want to help them kind of grow and learn. It's a very helpful resource. Um, Definitely encourage you to check it out. And just the second bullet point, I appreciate what she says here. I really do. I love the emphasis on biblical femininity. There is a place for women in the church. I think oftentimes that kind of gets overlooked, and it's sad, but it is the truth. Women play a significant role in the church. We can see this, very early on in the with the church, right? In Jesus' ministry, the women were there throughout it all. Women were there after the men left. They were there when he was on his way to be crucified. They were they stayed there the longest. They were the first ones there at the tomb. So it's very clear, that their ministry is much needed, and that's the case in the argument we're making here today, that women are needed in apologetics. We need more women apologists. We have some, definitely much more than we had in the past, but we need more. We want more. We need their perspective. We need their gifts, and their relational capabilities tend to go farther than for us as men.
I agree.
Anything that you wanted to add there?
Some s- some people receive better from women. We could have two separate people, a man and a woman, saying the same thing, but some people may receive or want to learn from a woman versus a man, or the opposite. But usually it's out of curiosity, like, what does she have to say? And then when they start to, feel like they're understanding or we're relatable, they keep coming back to learn or to talk to you or to ask you questions. Like I always said, it's building relationships. I have a lot of friends who continuously come to me and ask questions about, because I was really big on, a lot of women like to get together, women's groups, and have a book club, or, and there's nothing wrong with that. Getting women out of the house away from the kids once a week to talk about things is great. Um, but you have to know what is the book that you're reading, who's the author, because there's a lot of books out there that in the bookstore call themselves Christian books, and they're not Christian books.
Right.
And so if you're not careful about who you're bringing into your women's group, that whole group is going to be misled. So,
Yeah,
a lot of my, in my old church, that's what we did. We made sure that, you know, um, of course, you run it by someone, a leader first, or even if you don't have a leader, if you want a book, do a little research. It takes less than 5 minutes to see who the author
yeah,
is, what kind of church
for
they're
sure.
from, and what does the internet say? Not that the internet is always right, but if they're not good, it's gonna pop up, that they're not that good. So put the book back down and and get
Yeah,
something, more biblical, or more someone who's more trusted.
for sure. And a lot of these bigger name, or I guess quote unquote bigger name authors, a lot of times if you go on their author page, they'll have some sort of belief statement or some sort of summary of kind of where they're coming from. And if they don't, maybe they point back to the church that they're a part of, and you can look at their statement of belief, which will help you give you more clarity onto where they stand, and it'll help you know if it's a good book or not. And I think another thing that's helpful is also being aware of who the publisher is, right? Not to say that some bigger publishers don't publish people that shouldn't be published, but for the most part, if it's like Sonderman or InterVarsity Press, they tend to be a little more solid. You can kind of, and I would caution. I don't want this to be a blanket statement. I think that the best approach is to look into the actual author. But if you see the publisher, that's a thumbs up on your like on that side. Okay, Sonderman published this, so they kind of went through a process. It wasn't some independent publisher somewhere. That's not to knock, those that do the independent publishing. I know very good authors that just have done independent publishing. It goes back to kind of verifying the author. It's just another check, I guess, to kind of go through as you decide whether or not to use the book. But let me go ahead and I have a couple more that I want to try to run through, and then we'll get into a couple of these questions here quickly. I know we're running low on time here. So, while the content of apologetics is the same for men and women, the way that women learn this content and deliver it is distinctive. But as more and more women are entering this field of study in seminary and are fulfilling their calling to teach other women, Christian women whose expertise lies in other areas, from homemaking to banking, are hearing these vital apologetic truths in women's voices with women's relational concerns at the forefront. I think it's crucial that women hear other women studying and teaching apologetics. This is something that Carm hit on earlier as well. It just is better received that way, as opposed to it coming from a male figure every single time. I'll speak for myself here a little bit, being that's someone that's Puerto Rican, Hispanic. When I come across a Puerto Rican or Hispanic, scholar or author talking about things that have to do with the Bible or apologetics or just the Christian faith, I get really excited. Particularly, it's just kind of this, get this sense of kind of feeling proud, not in a negative way, but like, oh wow, like that's so awesome, like someone that's kind of like me in that sense is engaging this and is able to do it. It's encouraging.
I agree. It gets me excited too.
Yeah. And let's see. So the slide mentions women teaching other women. So we're going to look here. This is Titus 2, verses 3 through 5. Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. If you look at this whole chapter in context, while it's emphasizing women's involvement, at home and things like that, you look at the verses before, and if I'm not mistaken, the verses after, you get a better picture of what's kind of being described. What they're teaching women about Jesus, right? They're kind of helping them kind of grow in that sense. So I think it's important for us to keep that in mind, especially when we have, different views, the complementarians and egalitarians. I'm not going to get into that here, but I want to make sure I throw that out there. Anything you wanted to add to that last one, Carm, on those verses?
Well, coming from a Puerto Rican line of women, being controlled and submissive to their husbands, that's something you don't find too easily. So, especially new Christians, when they hear that, especially, there's a lot of Puerto Rican women, Hispanic women who are strong and they don't want to be told what to do. And, and it's dysfunction. It's not, I get it. I get where they're coming from, but there's an order, the way that things are supposed to be. And you have to be humble and submit to God's word first, then your husband.
I agree.
And if you're, God lays out these rules in the Bible because he loves us. And although we may not understand everything that he says, and we may have an issue with it, pray about it. Because just like we want the best for our children, we tell them, don't touch the fire, it's hot. They may not understand it at the time, but as time goes, they understand, oh, my parents love me. They didn't want me to get hurt. And that's exactly what the Bible, all of the rules, all of the instructions, everything that God tells us not to do, it's because he loves us. And it's our problem. If we have an issue with it, it's not God's problem. It's our problem. Prayer and just trying to continue to push forward, it'll work itself out. It really will. And, I know that's a hard thing for Latina women to submit to anybody, but it's for our best.
Yeah. No, I think it's important. And you look at that passage there, because a lot of people point back to Ephesians. It's kind of like that passage. I think it's important. And before we get to the verses about women submitting to men, it talks about how we're submit to one another, or submit to Jesus in that sense, right? I think that's the whole train of thought there, right? We're women submit because that's kind of what Jesus showed us. And it also it's an emphasis for us as men that we submit as well. Not in the same way we submit to Christ. Because we submit to Christ, we're certain things that we're supposed to be responsible for. So if you're a Christian guy, all right, don't go telling your wife, "Oh, you have to submit to me." That's not what we're saying here. You know,
Especially if she's Latina, not just
it's not
kidding.
going to work too well. We are commanded to love our wives,
Yes.
guys. Love your wife as Christ loved the church. When you do that, then we can talk about the rest.
Happy wife,
Um,
happy life. Is that what
yeah,
Mhm.
and listen, I'll talk. I'll speak for myself here. I'd be lying if I told you that I loved my wife the way that Christ loved the church, right? That unconditional love. When you really start to kind of consider that, I don't, some of that, that's the selfish desires, that pride that kind of tends to rise up. It'll come back down for you as you reflect on that, for sure. And so this one is just saying Christian women as a whole, because of this, are seeing apologetics as a vital tool they can use to build their own faith, as well as to provide somewhere to go in a conversation when their coworker or college age kid asks a question or raises an objection to the claims of Christianity. This ties into the previous slide. This idea of women studying and teaching other women when it comes to this issue with, you know, having conversations with their kids. The focus here is college age kids. For that, there's a specific books that are geared towards, college and like high school students that I would say are very helpful. One of the latest ones that I have not read yet, but I've heard a lot of good things, is by Michael Kruger. I believe it's Surviving Religion. For those that are kind of more in the high school kind of age group, some authors that I would recommend would be like Brett Kunkel. He has a book, Practical Guide to Culture. I think it's with John Stone Street. Sean McDowell has some stuff that is geared specifically for students that I would find, I think will be very helpful. And J. Warner Wallace, he has books geared for kids and for adults. I'm going to flip back here so I can show some of these books that I have here. So I went through a couple of these with my daughter. This is Cold Case Christianity for Kids. This is a adult companion book that is very good. I have not read the adult one, only read the kid one. I learned a lot from the kid one.
Mhm.
So honestly, if you're trying to help your kids grow, he has three of them. So this is God's Crime Scene for Kids, and this is Forensic Faith for Kids, which is the last in the series. I've heard him kind of talk a little bit in some of his interviews, and he mentions how the first one he wrote was actually Forensic Faith, but the way that when he went to publishing, they wanted to start with something a little more, I guess, engaging and interactive. So they went with Cold Case Christianity. So Cold Case Christianity is just talking about Jesus, the resurrection, right? What evidence we have. God's Crime Scene is going to take an older creation perspective, which is the direction that I personally lean towards. Just kind of making that case, how the universe kind of came into exist. And Forensic Faith is going a little bit deeper on kind of how we know that Jesus is who he claims to be. Very helpful, honestly. If you go on the website, he has like activity sheets and worksheets that you can do with the kids. My daughter was really into it. Like when we read the book, I'm like, hey, listen, there's some activity sheets, some worksheets. Like we don't have to go through them. Like, what do you think? But she wanted to go through them, so we did. And she was a little younger back then too, so I think trying to do so now probably maybe she wouldn't be as up for it. But some things that I think would be very helpful. So we're running a little low on time here. How much time do you have, Carm?
I have all night.
What's that?
I'm good. I've got all night. Yeah.
All right. Well, I promise not to keep you here all night. That's let's go ahead and just kind of run through a couple of these questions really quickly.
Okay.
Some of these I think you probably hit on already. How did you, in particular, kind of get into apologetics? Was it through kind of encountering a particular objection, or was it more of a, hey, I see this need for me personally, and kind of wanted to go a little deeper?
Well, for me personally, I grew up in a predominantly Muslim community.
Okay.
Although I was Christian, all my friends were Muslim, most of them.
Really?
Yeah. So growing up, from 7th grade on, we would have conversations because I was always asking questions. And I would talk to my friends, and we would just all day long, they would explain what they believed. And from the knowledge that I had, I would try to defend it and try to give explanation. I didn't know everything. I just knew that Jesus was the Son of God. He died on the cross. He rose on the third day. And but over time, I was told, Allah is just the word for God in Arabic, just like they would tell me, in Spanish, we have a word for God. In Arabic, they say Allah. They believe in Jesus too. I remember sitting in class, and my friend, she told me, God loved Jesus. Why would he kill him? And because I didn't understand why Jesus had to die, I didn't understand it. It started to make sense to me. Yeah, why would he kill his son? He loved him. So they would tell me, he didn't kill him, he took him straight to heaven. Um, and so that's something that I make sure that I tell my friends or any other Christian, to make sure that you understand the reason why Jesus had to die on the cross. Because
Yeah.
if you don't understand and know why Jesus had to die, you'll be like me and be, easily fooled, and start, believe the lies that, the Muslims believe. So that's how it began. And so by the time, I had a lot of compassion and empathy. By the time I graduated, I started to believe that, yeah, we do believe in the same God.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there was a time that I was so confused, because in my heart, I knew that it wasn't right, but I didn't have any kind of direction to go. We stopped going to church. And, when you're living in sin, you're not really worried about it. I mean, it was in the back of my mind, but not where it should have been. So fast forward life, and then, I started to be discipled by a oneness pastor. And so that just kind of, when I realized, okay, so then from Michigan, I got married, had kids, moved to California. So it wasn't until I moved to California that I was watching David Wood and Nabil, and I started to hear the things that he was saying. I was very, very protective of my city. I was very protective of my friends. And so
Yeah.
when I started to hear David say those things, my first thought was, oh no, that's not all Muslims. That's the Muslims in the Middle East. That can't be. But because it really bothered me, I kept coming back, to the channel, and then I would talk to my friends about it and just go back and forth, back and forth. But then I realized one day it just hit me. After all of the research that I did, I couldn't even defend it anymore. I realized my friends are wrong. They're wrong. And they're so content with, because they're not really encouraged to learn what the, they think that they have the truth, like everybody does,
Yeah.
really. But they're not encouraged to investigate. And actually, if you even think that Islam is wrong or that Allah's wrong, you're going to go to hell. So it's a fear-based religion. And then once I realized that my friends were wrong, fast forward, and then I realized that I was being taught, I was fooled by this oneness pastor. Um, it really humbled me, and I really went through a little bit of crisis, because my first thought was, oh my goodness, if my friends think that they're right and they're wrong, if I thought that, I was being taught by, if this pastor who called himself a Christian, who said he believes in the Bible, but is teaching the wrong things, I had to find out for myself what the truth was, because I know that no one is going to stand with me on Judgment Day in front of God, that I had to know the truth for myself. So that was the main thing. It didn't matter what anybody thought. I needed to know for myself. Once I
Yeah.
did that research, and I really, really dug in, because I did not want to be wrong. And the thing about me is that I don't ever want to lead anybody the wrong way, because I see what it did to me. So once I figured that truth out, I then had to realize my friends need to know the truth. So all my friends need to know the truth. My Muslim, my oneness, my Jehovah's Witness, my ones that don't believe,
Yes.
they have to know the truth. So that began the beginning of my passion. I didn't even know apologetics existed. I didn't know there was a word for that. Um, and so that's where it began. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn, the more I realized what I didn't know, the more it strengthened me. I was always a little timid about, um, approaching people because I wasn't sure. I kept thinking, and that's where my Facebook group comes, What If You're Wrong, came out of. Because what if you're wrong? I would tell my friends, what if you're wrong? Um, and so now I know that, you know, I'm confident. I'm confident that the Bible
Yes.
is correct. I'm confident that there is only one way to heaven. I'm confident in every single thing that the Bible says that it's true. And there's no doubt in my mind. And I know that it's not only about my emotion, about how I feel about it. Um, there's proof, and the proof is what really solidified all of this, is that there is proof. Islam can be easily um, dismantled. I see it happen. I'm the ministry to Muslims. Um, I know a lot of people and Muslims don't invest the time into seeing the faults of Islam. They don't want to, and maybe out of fear, because I know in this religion, if you leave, they'll kill you. I mean, it's
Yeah.
terrible. It's terrible. I can't imagine living my entire life and then realizing that I've been told a lie, and then wanting to leave it, and then being afraid for my life. I pray for all Muslims. They have I have a heart for them. I love them. I want them to know the truth. I want to all everybody who's lost to know the
Yeah.
truth. Because when you think about heaven, you think, or eternity, you think that it's a long time. And so I don't want anybody to be there, even my worst enemy, to be there. I don't. So we all have our own part. You have your part. I have my part. God puts people in front of us in our daily lives, running across our YouTube channel, all for a reason. And we just have to take our opportunity that we have and do it, and not be afraid, and just continue to learn and grow, and be bold in our faith.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope you guys kind of hear Carm's heart there. She got into apologetics. What really kickstarted it for her was the love of her friends. She loved her friends, and it broke her heart to see that perhaps they were being led astray. She wanted to help them see and know who Jesus is. I think that's so powerful. That's a good reminder for us who aspire to have these conversations, to make sure that we're coming into them from a place of love and not going in there just trying to win arguments. We're not trying to win arguments. I've heard people say this a few times. We're trying to win people. Just make sure that we keep that in mind. Is there a particular book or resource that sparked the interest in apologetics for you? I know you mentioned David Wood. Is there anything else in particular that kind of got you into it?
So when I started to realize that there were women in apologetics, Mary Jo Sharp came up,
Yeah.
and she has a book, Why Do You Believe That? So that was the first book that I got.
Nice.
And that book is an awesome resource. It has the basic questions, questions we all have, and basic answers to how to. It's nothing overwhelming. It's not intimidating. That's the book that really made me realize, like, I can do this. This is conversation. I can have
Yeah.
these conversations. You're not always going to get it right. You're not always going to know everything. And that is something that I had, because I felt like I had to know everything before I even had a conversation. That's a lie. You don't have to know everything. Um, and with me, like, I never wanted to be wrong. I don't want to be wrong. So that stopped me from saying a lot. But then I realized, you know what? I will do it with my best intentions, with my heart. If I'm wrong, I will call them back up and say, you know what, I misspoke, and this is what you know. I meant to say, or this is what the Bible says.
Yeah.
But don't let fear of being wrong, I mean, unless you're really unstudied and really are wrong, then obviously don't
Right.
speak
Right.
something. But then just tell someone how much you love them, and even if you don't have Bible verses, just I mean, a testimony isn't always the best way to go. But if that's all you've got, and how Jesus changed your life, and how free you feel from the sin that you were once wrapped up in, and I mean, start there then. Don't let
Yeah.
anything stop you. Just share your heart, share the love that you have for this person, and knowing that they're going down the wrong path, and that you really just want them to join you in this journey of learning. That you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. No, and I think that's awesome. I think it's important for us to know that our testimonies are a part of our witness, and you should share a testimony. But I think the what's important is to keep in mind that that's just the start. Don't just stop there, right? Go farther than your testimony. But as people who are trying to defend their faith, like Carm, and myself here, we want to make sure that we emphasize that we're not opposed to sharing your testimony. We would just encourage you to do a little more studying and research so that as you engage in conversation and are confronted with some questions, some objections, you are better equipped to answer them. And ultimately, the goal here is to remove as many obstacles as possible that you possibly can to help that person come into a life saving relationship with Jesus Christ. That is the goal. As you, at least, and this has been my experience, as you progress, as you kind of share your faith, and as you learn a little bit more, and the times that I've had, an ample amount of time to witness to someone, maybe someone that I work with or someone that I'm close with, as we walk through some of these intellectual doubts or intellectual objections, we come to a point where we stripped all of them down. And ultimately, I think that's the goal, is to expose their heart. We can't change their heart, but we can expose it. And when we expose it, that gives us the Holy Spirit an opportunity to come in there and really kind of like, you know, do his work. We can't change people, right? But if we can remove those obstacles and leave them at that point where, like, hey, all these intellectual things you're throwing out there, that's all I'm asking. Ultimately, it's about your heart.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. And also too, what it took me a little while to understand is that somebody's salvation doesn't rest on us. It's not,
yes,
we can't save them. And for a while, I thought I had to be, because my heart was so wrapped up in trying to get my friends to understand where I was coming from, that I literally, it brings me to tears still when I think about, their fate. And it used to make me think that if I didn't have the right way to say something, that it was going to be not, I never thought it would be my fault, but I felt like it was up to me, that I had to do this. And if I don't, then, it was a big burden. But once I realized that it's not up to me, I can only do my part, and it's up to God. And that took a lot of pressure off of me, um,
yeah,
to feel that
for
weight,
sure.
heavy weight. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Um, are there any particular resources or books that you would recommend?
I have a few. So let's see, off the top of my head, I have the one that has helped me so much with the oneness. Um, uh, Dr. Edward Dalcour. He
Okay.
has this book. So I have these are my favorite books. These are my go-to books. So it's the oneness theology.
See if I can make you full screen here. Hold on. Let me turn
Yeah,
mine off.
there we go. Yeah, so this is my go-to book. The best book on he is the best for oneness theology. He has taught me so much. Um, I've learned so much from him. So this book is a great resource. The other book, I would say, so I have Vocab Malone just came out with an amazing book. This is really good. Street Level Apologetics. Can you see that? That one is really good. This helps just go through practical apologetics and how to, it's just conversation. Vocab Malone is a great resource. He's very relatable, and this book is a great resource. Um, Another one, that Tactics. This one helps you how to really get into, when you're talking to someone, how to, when they bring up an objection, that if they have an objection, that it really rests on them to to prove their point. And so when you it's kind of like being a lawyer, I guess. The basics, that you let them talk, let them explain their position. It's not up to you, it's up to them to prove. So this book was a great resource. And I just have I mean, I have, oh, this one is Anthony, Reverend Anthony Rogers. This is a great book.
Bring it
Um,
over to your right a little bit. There we
yeah,
go.
there we go.
Our God is triune. Okay.
This is good.
Yeah.
This is really good.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so those are my go-to books. That's why I have them up there, because I literally go through. I had to get another one of the Oneness, because the pages, it's highlighted. It is it's a
You
really,
went through it. That's awesome.
I yeah,
Yeah.
all the time, because um, you can never, just when you think, for me, just when you think you know enough, I nope, I don't know, not even close. I'm not even close. So, to have my resources at hand has been helpful. So those are my go-to books.
It's awesome. Um, so tell us a little bit more about any things that you have kind of coming up in the next few days. Any particular, promote some of your other stuff. Definitely talk about your Facebook group. I know you hit on it earlier. How can people become a part of the group? Is it just something that you search and ask to join, or is it invite only? How does that work?
I don't know, actually, because it is a private group. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to make it not private. Like, it won't let you.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I don't know.
It's okay.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I mean, everyone that's in there has been invited by a friend or a
Okay.
friend. I'm sure, actually, there've been a few people who have requested to join that didn't know anything. So maybe if you type in "what if you're wrong," it will come up.
Gotcha.
Um, but so coming up, so on Sundays I do Ministry to Muslim. We have a different guest every week. It's on Sundays at 7 o'clock Eastern time. We have a debate coming up.
Okay.
What date is that? It's a Ministry to Muslim conference on the 28th of this month. So that's
Nice.
going to be airing. We have Anthony Rogers, Dr. Edward Delcourt is going to be speaking. A few other amazing apologists are going to be speaking as well. And what else do we have coming up? As of right now, I think that's it. I think, yeah.
Okay. What I can do is I can include the link to the Facebook group. I think I can include that in the description of the video. And if anyone's interested in joining the group, definitely click on the link. And I assume that'll at least show a kind of request.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, for me, this on the 30th of this month, I'm gonna have Wes Huff coming on. We're gonna be talking about the Trinity. If you're not familiar with his ministry, I would encourage you to go over to his YouTube page. I think it says Wes Huff. He has a shorter video on the Trinity that's about 5 minutes or so, and a longer one that's about a half hour. Definitely encourage you to check out his website. He's got a ton of content. He's got some handouts you can look through. He's got some infographics. If you don't follow him on Facebook, follow him on Facebook as well. He's got those sort of graphics. I'm telling you, they're very helpful. He has one kind of talking on the Trinity specifically, that the triangle that we've seen it a few times. Very detailed, very in depth. I think it's very helpful. Definitely something to go ahead and check out. Do you have anything coming up on your personal channel?
As soon as I figure out how to edit, I will. That is
I
that's
got
my
you.
goal right now. That is my goal.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on. Um, and we'll have to have you back on here in the near future. I would love to have you come on, talk about your some of your uh, encounters, talking with Muslims, kind of your approach. Kind of, I'm not too familiar with engaging with Muslims where I live at here in Delaware, and where I lived at in Maryland. There just isn't as many. There's definitely a few mosques, but there's not. I guess they're not out and about as they are in other places. So my interactions with them have been limited. We have had some actually come visit the church that I'm a part of a few times, and our pastor has always taken the time to talk to them kind of one on one and kind of be very hospitable in that sense. So that's been pretty cool. I definitely want to have you come back talk about that. Honestly, I was not aware that you did something on the New Age. I
Mhm.
think that's very helpful. I did a short video a few months back, kind of talking about some New Age stuff. So I think it'd be helpful. Maybe we can get set something up, have you back on here a couple more times.
Yeah,
But
as soon as
I
I get
appreciate you coming on.
the conference, I have the conference. I just have to edit it. So as soon as I get
Yeah,
that edited, it'll be on my YouTube page.
nice,
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you guys next time. Definitely keep an eye out for that video coming up May 30th with West Huff. Make sure you subscribe to Carm's personal channel, Carm M, and definitely subscribe to the Ministry to Muslims YouTube page and check out the Facebook group, What If You're Wrong. Any last thoughts here, Carm, before we wrap up?
Just I want to encourage women to not be intimidated by this. It's not that big of a deal as far as you can do it. Just to stay in their word and to just be the light of what the Bible says and be good examples. And I encourage all women to do this. It's definitely achievable.
All right. Well, there you guys go. Women, we need you. We
Yes.
want you to continue to grow. We want you to continue help us grow. We want you to continue to get a little deeper into this apologetics area. We need more women apologists. This is our kind of our call to action, is that you would not be afraid, jump in there, use the resources that are out there. You can reach out to Carm. There's plenty of other women apologists. She mentioned Mary Jo Sharp and Mama Bear Apologetics are good resources that will help you kind of grow. But that being said, have a